So I did have a question specifically based on, so in the first episode, you guys are saying like, we're going to do certain things, like do it for the podcast. So my question is, what have you guys done for the podcast over the last, or since it started? Anything that comes to mind?
Can I answer first, Natalie?
Yes.
This is like a little sneak peek into probably our episode 4. But like this weekend, I would say like I'm not being someone different for the podcast, because I thought about that, because I was like, do it for the podcast. And I was like, wait, it's almost giving you confidence. Like there is a boy who was in my DMs. I call Natalie, and she always uses the phrase, do it for the podcast. And I was like, I never would DM him like, would you want to go get something to eat? But Natalie worked it through me. And that's something I'm like, well, like this is material like we can use on the podcast. I feel like it gives you like confidence in your like dating life.
Right. And like I feel like it also like helps us get out of our comfort zone, which is so hard for people. And I feel like, being able to share experiences that make us uncomfortable with others can hopefully inspire people to be bold and, do things they've always wanted to do, but are too scared because like, what if I get rejected or something like that? I think it's like nice. And I think honestly, just having the podcast is doing it for the podcast, because we're so open that I'm like, we're just literally just doing each episode. In the back of my mind, I'm like, it's for the podcast. Be brave. Just say it. Just do it. So I think just making the podcast was for the podcast. If that's weird and meta, but I don't know.
KeKe, over the weekend, you say you slid into someone's DMs to get food. Natalie, have you, other than doing the podcast, have you done anything specifically, like dating? You were saying that, you kind of I want to say fallen off the horse or whatever, but slowed down the dating caliber in Miami. Have you embarked in the scene more so after that first episode, first date?
So Taylor, oh my God, I'm like infatuated. I'm like smitten by this guy that I'm so embarrassed because I keep talking about him. We haven't even met. But it's this guy that like, he is like a filmmaker in Miami. And right now in Miami, there's a film festival going on and I'm supposed to meet him this week. So I am definitely going to be bold when I meet him. And I'm doing that for the podcast because I'm so scared of rejection, but I'm like, F it. Like, I'm going to shoot my shot. That's it. So, yeah. So not yet, but coming.
I'm like, do you guys have plans? And I was like, wait, this guy's probably going to be like, she's like, not if I tell you what they are.
Right? Oh my God.
This week's episode drop, Natalie like introduces him, and then we got to record. So then episode 4 will be update, I guess.
This poor guy.
Does he know that you guys are I mean, I would assume he knows you're making a podcast, or no? Does he just like, you're just like, I am Natalie and that is what you know about me? Or
so he's kind of like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing, but he's kind of like a big shot in his own way, because his film is like doing really, like he's legit, like he's like successful and in his industry. So I don't know if he like listens to the podcast or takes time to do that. So that's why I feel a little safer, but you never know, because he is a very kind and supportive person. So he might be listening. He knows I do a podcast. He knows I was on 20-somethings, but he doesn't really know much about me. So I don't know. Oh my God, cringe. I'm sorry.
No, this is what so weird. Natalie and I talked about, because like the guy I DM'd this week, we saw he follows Hopeful and Horny. And so we're gonna be dating people that like might be like, wait, they're talking about me, which we use code names on the podcast so we don't give away. But we're like, this is also hard. Like, how do you manage talking about it when they're gonna listen? And we're like, we hope it's not a turn off in the future.
I know. Oh my God.
Is there like a preference, in like filming versus podcasts? Like, what do you like more for like recording a podcast and obviously being on TV all the time?
Yeah.
A lot of our supporters want us to do the video thing, and that's on me. Hopefully this week I plan to play with it, and so we want to do it because we also think it would give us more like stuff for social media to use. So I think we're very open to it. I'm gonna laugh because we're gonna expose, but like because I live with kids and we film late at night, I actually record in the garage. So I think people are gonna die when they see that like I'm in a garage filming.
Okay, KeKe doesn't know this, but I've been like daydreaming about this for a while now. KeKe, you're just gonna find out. But my dream is for KeKe to come because we have like a whole these people that want to help us with like video footage and stuff for our podcast. And he's actually like my sister's boyfriend or whatever. I don't know. Okay, going too much into detail. But my dream is for KeKe to visit and for us to do like a whole visual of our podcast. And like we're wearing like fake wigs and like we're in the studio. Yeah, I wanted to tell you, KeKe, because like I want to like wear wigs and like be fun and crazy. So I'm excited for hopefully a visual one coming soon. Like maybe we'll do like a special episode and we can bring props and stuff. I don't know. I just love visual stuff. I don't know.
If y'all could have any guest on the podcast outside of like, you know, cast mates from 20-somethings, who would be like your dream guest? We'll start with Natalie.
Oh my gosh, Taylor, wait, I need to think about this. Whoa. Dream guest. Like anyone ever?
Like literally anyone. Yeah. There's a lot of people in the world. I understand that's a tall question.
I'm also like, who would be good for the content of our podcast? I'm like thinking
that's a good
business.
creative mind right there. Always thinking, yeah.
Oh my gosh, who is like, well, they're not like famous. I mean, yeah, they kind of are. But our inspiration, actually, KeKe brought this up to me for our podcast was Girls Gotta Eat. They have their own podcast. And like, I feel like it'd be so much fun to do a collab with them just because it's like very similar in style, I guess. And I've heard a lot about them. So that's my
You're like plug
semi answer. I probably have someone else that's legit, like someone I'll be starstruck with, but let me think more.
I was going two different routes. I'm a huge Real Housewives fan. So I was trying to think about what Natalie said about like who would be like good content. And I'm trying to think like to me, I'm struggling to think of one that's like so open.
But then at the same time, you could always get someone on the show and you'd be surprised at how open they could be. They were just never were given like a platform to specifically talk about, you know, what you guys are doing, which is basically having a platform to talk about things people are scared to talk about. So like, you never know. So if anyone was perfect, let's just go into it. Assuming everyone would be great on the podcast, who on like any of the Real Housewives, KeKe, would you want to come on? Talk shop.
Actually, a dream happened last week. One of them followed me, and because she's the first housewife to ever follow me, it's Cynthia Bailey. She was from Atlanta, and then she just was on Celebrity Big Brother. And I was in shock. I was like, why is this woman following me? Like I have no business. And because of that, I have to say Cynthia Bailey.
Breaking through the Bravo molds. Yes.
But with Netflix, I was like, I would dream of a Queer Eye. Like anyone from Queer Eye would be amazing on the podcast.
Yes. Trixie and Katya. Oh my God, I love them too.
Yeah. Okay. So just final thoughts, takeaways related to the podcast. What do you guys hope people get out of it? Like, what do you aspire for? What are your hopes, dreams for the listeners?
I hope that people will, I guess there's a few things, feel less alone, be inspired to get out of their comfort zone, and just be inspired to embrace every aspect of who they are, despite like, you know, society saying it's wrong or, you know, your culture saying it's inappropriate, stuff like that. So just making people feel like they can truly be themselves and not be afraid to get out of their comfort zone and stuff. That's my goal and inspiration for that.
Beautiful.
I agree. And just kind of what you mentioned too, Taylor, is like continuing hopefully inspired to continue the conversation with like friends. Like my favorite part about the DMs is people saying like, oh my gosh, like I relate to this. And then they send us their story. And so hopefully like they share that with their friends. So people are less embarrassed or maybe more open about topics we should be discussing.